Welcome back to Kontraposition with me and my co-host Emil. Today we are joined by two extraordinary women, and I'm very looking forward to this discussion. These women have dedicated their lives to exposing hidden systems and helping others to heal. Cathy O'Brien is the author of Trance Formation of America, Access Denied, and PTSD Time to Heal, where she shares her story of government mind control and recovery. And we also have Dr. Juliette Engel. She's a physician and activist who founded the Angel Coalition in Moscow, to fight human trafficking. And she's the author of Angels Over Moscow and Sparky: Surviving Sex Magick. Together, these women bring powerful personal stories and decades of insight, which we are now going to hear all about. So, Cathy, Juliette, you're very welcome here. I'm so honored to have you both here today. And before we dive into our questions and all the stories, would you each just take a little moment to introduce yourselves to our audience? In no particular order. Juliette, would you like to do us the honor?
Sure. I'm an American. I was born in 1949, so I'm 76 years old. And I think that it's really important for people like Cathy and I to speak out now because we have an overview that stretches over time, which could be helpful. I was sold into the MK Ultra program, which is the mind control program that was sponsored by the CIA in the United States and all over Europe throughout the Five Eyes, and I believe in the Scandinavian countries and definitely in Russia, is a program of mind control as a result of satanic abuse, ritual abuse, segmenting of children's minds into divisions, which is known as dissociative identity disorder. It's not really a disorder; it's an enforced way of developing the mind so that external forces can control it. But to get into my story, I was sold into that program at the age of 6. So the program was 3 years old. I was 6 years old, and my father sold me into the program in a ritual in which he received money. I was forced to watch, and then I was sexually abused in front of him, and it was made clear to me that my parents weren't going to help me. So I grew up in the MK Ultra program, going through a series of growing up in the Church of Satan, going through satanic ritual abuse, being moved between the U.S. through multiple states and into Mexico. And a lot of it was largely based out of Mein Kampf. So the MK and MK Ultra, as it was explained to me in the program, was taken from Hitler's book Mein Kampf, not the one that you can get today, but the one that was originally translated by Alan Cranston in 1935 into English. And the original book was 300,000 words. The Cranston's version was 70,000. And the translation was so bad that Hitler sued Cranston in the U.S. court and won. So that's how bad it was. But in the meantime, this book had been dispersed throughout the U.S., U.K., Europe, and now it's impossible to get copies of the original 300,000 word. But it was used in the rituals that mostly in Mexico when a great deal of LSD was used in the program. And if you, I don't know if I should talk about me or the program, but I'll talk about me. So I stayed in the program until I was 17. Then I escaped and I'd gotten myself accepted early into the University of Washington and went out completely on my own, put myself through college, medical school. And it really wasn't until my 30s, when my daughter was born, that I could remember a thing about my childhood. And then what came was just so crazy and flooded all over me. And but it was 76 years is a long time to cover in 5 minutes. But from there, I was still not remembering anything. I didn't realize I'd been in this program, and I was invited to go to Russia as a medical consultant. I went, and that's the basis of my book, Angels Over Moscow, because there I got involved with child trafficking, and I discovered child trafficking networks. I mapped out networks, discovered that the United States was a huge child trafficker, got a lot of support from Sweden in doing the projects I was doing, from the World Childhood Foundation, also from the very famous women's NGO Kvinna Forum, and also from SIDA. And so I've spent quite a bit of time in Sweden and got to see the transition in the late 2000s when you were starting to go woke. And so I came back to the US in 2010. I've been writing and speaking and remembering with Cathy's help. And so there's a lot of work to do. Our nation is in trouble. Europe's in trouble. Civilization is falling apart, and we need to rebuild our civilizational state. So I'll leave it there. I don't want to overtalk.
Thank you very much. Cathy, you're up.
Oh, my name is Cathy O'Brien. I'm a survivor of CIA MK Ultra mind control. I was used on a White House Pentagon level. I was deep in the Washington, D.C. swamp among perpetrators who steal elections, who use drug and human trafficking to fund their globalist agenda, and who are using mind control to usher in what Adolf Hitler, George Bush, Joe Biden, and these self-appointed, self-anointed global leaders term New World Order. Of course, it's got other names too, but it's a global slave society agenda. And mind control is being used globally to usher it in. And the formula for mind control is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, a classroom, a military, a church, or the world. And trauma is the basis of it. It had been found in the Hitler-Himmler research, there's no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while the brain is still forming. It's because of the way our brains respond to trauma. It shuts down neuron pathways in the brain. The brain automatically shuts those down, represses the memory of the traumatic event so the rest of the mind can develop and function normally. Well, this compartmentalization of memory is, as Juliette said, is dissociative identity disorder, and it does allow for outside influence to lead people from that point. Ultimately, that's what the slave society agenda is about, is to create a compliant society where the people do as they're told and don't think any further, don't even access their brilliant minds and live life the way it was intended, but instead follow the rules of the slave society agenda that was imported into the US in the wake of World War II, when we imported the Nazi and fascist scientists into the US through Project Paperclip. I encourage everybody to research that for themselves. With them came the formula for mind control. It's a very strategic scientific formula, and trauma, again, is the basis of it. They found also that satanic ritual abuse was also an extreme trauma that had that shut down many neuron pathways in the brain and repressed memory, because blood trauma is horrific. So those two trauma bases, sexual abuse of children and the satanic abuse, is very prevalent in controlling the population. It's why we're exposed to so much trauma. It's why the pedophile agenda is being pushed so hard globally. It's all about a mind control agenda. In my case, I was born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan. And my father was sexually abused and ritually abused. My mother was sexually abused and had been trafficked to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge. Masonic lodges, these secret societies, are where the secrets on mind control are kept so that people will put in key positions of power and influence to perpetuate this agenda that is contrary, so very contrary to our human nature. And my father's sexual abuse began in infancy before I could think to know what he was doing was wrong, but my brain knew. So it shut down those neuron pathways, repressed the memory. His sexual abuse extended into child pornography of me, and more neuron pathways shut down, more compartmentalization of memory. And then he started trafficking to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge, more neuron pathways shut down. So my neuron pathways were shutting down, just like mind control needs for control. And my father was caught sending child pornography of me through the U.S. mail in around 1960. And the local politician that I had been trafficked to since a little bitty toddler at the Masonic Lodge approached my father and told him he could receive immunity from prosecution if he would sell me into the CIA's MK Ultra mind control program. My father agreed. And when we imported the Nazi and fascist scientists into the U.S., by 1947, the National Security Act was formed and the CIA was formed. The National Security Act was to keep the secrets. The CIA was formed to enforce mind control on a global scale and start that process en masse. I was thrust into Project Monarch, which is a multi-generational sub-project of MK Ultra. And it's because of the multi-generational abuse in my family, been found in Hitler-Himmler research, again, that any trauma base, any knowledge base, any belief system is passed down autogenically in the brain after 3 generations. So this generational slow control over humanity has been going on ever since then to condition us to become dumber and dumber and dumb down more and more with the neuron pathways in our brain shut down, just like they were in me. And this local politician was Gerald Ford. He went on to become the unelected president of the United States. As his political career escalated, so too did my victimization in MK Ultra until I was used on a White House Pentagon level. So that's the basis of my abuse, where I was used sexually. I was used to compromise politicians and blackmail operations. I was used in those ever since I was a toddler. I was used at the Epstein Island of its time, Mackinac Island, Michigan, where these global perpetrators would meet to discuss the fate of humanity. So it gave me exposure to a lot of information, a lot of high-level perpetrators, a lot of experience, all of which is detailed in my 1995 testimony for Congress, Transformation of America. It was censored under national security, but every bit of it is available for people. They can get it on Audible or anything else. I've preserved the integrity of the information because every word was validated by clean members of law enforcement, intelligence, and Secret Service. The validation was there so strong that national security was invoked, trying to keep the information secret. The information is the efforts to keep information, truth, secret is because knowledge is our defense against mind control. And it really is truth that makes us free. So I'm going to keep speaking out until everyone gains that knowledge. And I'm so happy to be doing this with Juliette, who certainly has a big piece of the puzzle to bring to the table. As more and more of us survivors bring our individual pieces of the puzzle to the table, the big picture comes into focus, and we see how far-reaching this globalist agenda has become.
Thank you so much. I feel like my jaw is down here while listening to to you guys. So okay, let me ask you a question then about your books. Juliette, when you wrote the book, I've been looking a little bit the different books you wrote. You wrote one that's called Sparky, Surviving Sex Magick. And those experiences that you write in the book, did you also have repressed memories, and how did you access them, and how did that influence how you view the world as a whole? You understand what I'm trying to get to? When those memories come back to you, what in the world do you do with that?
Well, it really started coming back to me in when I was living in Moscow and had was working in birth houses. And the birth houses in Russia, I don't know if you're familiar, but they were just simply horrible. They were torture chambers and unsanitary, dangerous, and that's all in my book. Actually, it's in both books because I'd been invited to Russia to help with improving maternal and infant health care. I was a radiologist, but I'd done a great deal of my specialty was ultrasound, prenatal ultrasound, and I'd done a lot of work on improving maternal and infant health care in the U.S. and so I was invited to do the same in Russia. And what I discovered was a absolutely horrific system of birth houses. And then a third of those children were abandoned at birth. And the state actually encouraged single mothers or poor families to give up their children and put them in birth houses. And they sort of framed it as, well, you can get them later when you're on your feet again. Of course, by that time, they disappeared into trafficking rings, and I followed those children. I wanted to know what happened to the children who were abandoned. And all this time, these things were coming up in my own memory. And for me, smell is the biggest thing that brings the memories back, because at that time I had no memory. People would ask me, well, what in your past? The Russians were always asking, why are you doing this? And I couldn't tell them. I really didn't know, but boy, I was going to do it. And my whole life became about rescuing and saving children who'd been separated from their parents or made vulnerable by their parents abandoning them, or all these mechanisms that were used to separate children from their protection. Then they're absolutely helpless. I mean, an unprotected child outside of a family is completely defenseless. You could do anything you want. And that just infuriated me. So I followed these children. I followed them, actually, a group that was in an orphanage in northern Russia that I'd gotten to know, and then the children disappeared. So I wanted to know, I followed them. I followed the trail of these children and eventually took a bus from Murmansk to Kirkenes in Norway, and found that the bus had been used as a mobile brothel, and there were whole rings of Scandinavians who were operating this mobile brothel system from Russia into Finland, Sweden, and Norway. And the children that the Norwegians found had all been killed. So, and again, I just was driving me crazy that there was something in me that was driving this, and I wouldn't let it go. I arranged a series of actions inside of Russia to educate the people about counter trafficking, and this is when the Kvina Forum and the World Childhood Foundation got very involved in the work that I was doing. And actually, we got more help from Sweden than we got from anywhere else in terms of setting up systems to rescue and repatriate children and do safe houses. And we created a whole program called the Babushka Brigade, where we turned community centers with retired people into support centers for young families. And that helped everyone. It was so popular, they do it all over Russia now. So it really wasn't until I got back and realized I read Cathy's book. It was the real stimulus to me, because she was offering a CD that had documents on it. The documents were all redacted, but they were there. So that told me that there were documents, and that there was a program. No one in my family, who were all NSA, CIA, were going to tell me anything. And so I wrote it. And Cathy says, write by hand. I wrote by hand, took notes by hand. I also wrote by computer because I'm very comfortable with it, and took myself back to a period in time when I was 10 years old and went step by step by step through everything, forced myself to remember what had happened to me during that year. And that was Sparky. That Sparky was one of my, every time we moved and I took a new identity, I forgot every other identity, and that's the descendant identity disorder. And Sparky McGregor was my identity for when I was 10 years old, living on the border of Mexico, which is where I lived, in Imperial Beach in California, and what happened to me there. And so that's Sparky, Surviving Sex Magick. Sex Magick is a program that was designed by Aleister Crowley, who was a famous spiritualist and witch, warlock, whatever. But he trained the MK Ultra, particularly the people at the Presidio, like Aquino and others who are still alive. So I'm not going to mention them, or I'll hear from them. But he designed a program to, as thou wilt, how to enforce your will in another person's body. And that's a lot of what one-on-one mind control is. And Sex Magick is that. It's less to do with sex and more about a psychic connection with another person. And that's the program that I was in, that and remote viewing. And when I was a child, did a lot of opening of portals, ritualistic, satanic manipulation, but that was all under Crowley's description of Sex Magick. So that's what that is. But in the book, I stay in the identity of Sparky McGregor, because I want people to know what it's like to be a child inside the program. And I feel like that's the thing I can offer. I'm big picture, outside legal, all of that. I think my mind is still very damaged, and it's not going to come up with the answers. The answers are going to be normies, what we call normies, people who haven't been programmed. But we who have been programmed need to give you all the information you need to fix this, because it's going to damage everybody.
I guess this trauma is also a grayscale, or you get different levels of it. I guess we're all in some way of a trauma. I remember hearing somewhere that the assassination of JFK was one of the biggest traumas that went to the US, and we got Olof Palme in Sweden, who I guess was a big trauma to our society. And what I'm going to is the different levels of trauma that's all making us obedient, or I guess the ones that you were talking about is for the leaders. That's more of that you control them on 100% level, but we also control. You can call it a Stockholm syndrome, if you like. So we're all part of this, and I like what you say. We're going to find these solutions together, and happy to have your insights of it. So, Cathy, do you have a similar story that Juliette have?
Well, that's you're so right about the sliding scale of mind control, because it goes from the kind of robotic, torturous MK Ultra mind control that Julian and I experienced too. Information control, because we all formulate our thoughts, our opinions, and ultimately our actions based on what we know. And we need to know that knowledge base has been deliberately altered for a long, long time. Suppression of our birthright information on the resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. What our defense against mind control is, all that information has been suppressed a long time to keep society more compliant. So mind control has affected so many aspects of society. It's reached into churches, the education system, all on a global scale. I think a prime example of MK Ultra mind control is when mind control masked as a virus was unleashed on the global population 2020. That was to gain control over the minds of the masses, to mask them up and inhibit oxygen to the brain necessary for critical analysis free thought, to create depersonalization, muffle voices, get people following orders and doing what big pharma says, rather than going within and realizing that we have an amazing health system within us, a resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. But humanity has been conditioned for generations to look outside themselves, to, big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult religion to tell them how to live their lives. When in fact, we have all the power within us. We have so much within us all, but we have been led away from that very deliberately by this handful of puppet masters hell-bent on ushering in the slave society agenda. They need to dumb us down. They need us to be low vibration. They need us to be flat, linear thinkers like artificial intelligence in order to align us with it. They themselves are low vibration, dark, negative energy force perpetrators. They feed off a low vibration. They feed off of hatred, fear, trauma, division. That's their vibration. What they fear the most, having been around them, what they fear the most is the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love. That's the highest vibration. It's the ultimate power. It's our victory. It's humanity's victory. I think we are hearing globally quite a large outcry how our humanity is under attack. Yes, it has been slowly creeping in for generations to make us more compliant, because this handful of puppet masters at the top, and it's just a handful, follow the money. They fear the strength of the human spirit. It's our saving grace. It's our victory. They can't touch it. That it's too high vibration. It's like their darkness can't creep in on our light. Light instead exposes what they hide in the darkness. So we've got this amazing victory within us. But since they can't reach it and they can't stop it, the only thing they can do is stop us from thinking to access it. That's what mind control is all about. That's what it has been about for generations now, is to shut down neuron pathways in our conscious mind so our subconscious is wide open to being easily led and manipulated. The most basic form of mind control is repetitive media narrative. You hear something 3 times and it starts programming the subconscious. Then the subconscious, without our conscious mind filter, just takes information in, and then it feeds our conscious mind and ultimately our actions. So we need to safeguard our free thought, because without free thought, we have no free will. Without free will, we have no soul expression. When we lose our soul expression, we lose our compassion for each other. We lose our discernment of truth. We lose our ability to align with the divine within, to gather that strength of the human spirit, tap into the infinite power of love, to live our life's purpose, the way that life is intended to be lived. All of that gets disrupted by mind control. Mind control's number one component is trauma. That's why the world is experiencing trauma after trauma after trauma. It's intended to control us. Well, the good news is that we've got the victory in us. All we got to do is remember who we are and why we're here. And ultimately, that's why I've been speaking out for over 35 years on MK Ultra mind control and healing from it, so that people remember that, so that they reclaim their strength of spirit, so they reclaim their victory. You know, the Great Awakening on a global scale is already way past critical mass. We've got this victory. We just need to claim it now. And as my daughter Kelly was saying the other day, that we passed critical mass. Everybody is waking up now, but they sure have a long way to go to catch up, because the roots of corruption have been planted deep. We need to understand exactly what the components of mind control are, so that they don't affect us ever again, so that we don't comply with something like mind control masters of virus ever again, and so that we evolve with the knowledge that's our defense against mind control, in order to effectively protect the children going forward, because our children are targeted, our children are under assault, and we are not effectively protecting them because we have been misled outside ourselves so long. We're waiting on somebody else to do it for us. No, it's up to us. Reclaim our free thought, free will first, then we'll be effective in taking a stand for the children, and we'll be able to rehabilitate every one of them that has been trafficked and ritually abused and everything else, because what happens to us in life is not who we are. Who we are is still within, and it's divinely protected, and we can all access that once we're in a safe place. We've got to get safe places for the survivors to be able to heal. So that's up to all of us. And, you know, what an amazing time to be alive during this pivotal moment in humanity's history.
Sorry, Emil, you go.
No, shoot. I was just saying that it's an interesting time to be alive. It's less than boring.
Absolutely. So I imagine you have faced a lot of backlash and threats during the years while you have been speaking out about this and exposing what's going on. How have you been handling this? Because there's different sorts of backlash. One side that claims you're a liar, the other side is claiming that it's that if it was true, you would be dead, and those who know this happens but wants you to just shut up. How have you both dealt with this?
Well, I'm permanently banned from Wikipedia.
Oh, okay. That's a start.
Yes. When I did a coast-to-coast study in a chat room with 3,000 participants across the former Soviet Union, and this was partially funded by CEDA, by the way, but also the U.S. State Department, and we uncovered that the amount of trafficking going on in the former Soviet Union was huge. We came up with enough data points for the State Duma in Russia to write a law, but we also uncovered that the three biggest human traffickers in the world were Germany, Israel, and the United States. And when I took that information to the United States, I thought they'd be really interested in knowing this. You know, take this. You know, we have names, we have places, we have entry points, we have flights, documented flights they use over and over. They did nothing, and except to remove me from Wikipedia and make sure I've never will ever be on Wikipedia again. So that's the kind of punishment. It hasn't. It's been a constant threat and a constant fight. But honestly, growing up in the MK Ultra program, my life's been like that the whole time. So I wouldn't say this is anything particularly new, or being followed, or being tracked down, or being stalked, or, you know, it's like, okay, this again. So I do want to say that something absolutely huge happened, and in terms of, you said, people will call you a liar or say you're making this up or all this. Well, they can't do that anymore, because on December 23rd, 2024, the National Security Archive released a 1,200-page collection of documents in which the CIA admits to MKUltra. They talk about who formed it. They talk about how it was done. They talk about how they had a contract, Eli Lilly drug company, to import, who donated tons. They say that in this archive report. They gave tons of LSD to the people running the MKUltra program to test on unwilling subjects throughout the United States and the world, because they were doing this in other countries. And as I sent this to you. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but it's who did it, where they did it, how they set up safe houses. And then it does talk about how they began international cooperation and had series of meetings where they spread information throughout the Five Eyes, and then had meetings through them through countries, to countries like Sweden and Norway, and I don't know if they mentioned, I'm sure they mentioned Sweden in here. So they were training foreign government trainers on the MKUltra techniques. So it's a very detailed report, and everyone should read it. But from now on, no one can say anybody's lying about this, because it's all in here. And this is the National Security Archive at the George Washington University Library. And it's a permanent record of what the CIA did between 1947 and then it takes it up into the 1980s. But we all know it continued. And here's the picture of the man who trafficked me. This is the man who purchased me from my father. His name is George White, and he was a handler, my handler. Every MKUltra annex, and when I was in the program, I was sent from annex to annex to annex, from place to place, each place with a new identity, a new name. Forget everything else except the one person who was consistently there. Every annex had a Dr. Green. They all had German accents. There was a Dr. White, who in my case was actually Dr. White, and then there were Dr. Browns and Nanny Blacks, who were androgynous men dressed as nuns. So I've sent the link to you so that you can make sure all your viewers can look at this document. And the result of this document being released is that people who have been wondering why they can't remember their childhood, why they have this strange relationship with their parents, who tend to be high-level, successful people, or at least in this initial group that went in, who are now in their 60s and 70s. You can't doubt it anymore. Here it is, the drugs, the places, the names, it's an amazing admission. And the fact that they released it just before Christmas, when nobody's checking the National Security Archive, was deliberate. So, but it's a major step.
Put the links down below so everybody can see for themselves. So.
And Cathy, how has this been? You've also faced a lot of backlash and been living under threats, I imagine.
It's been quite a journey, but like intelligence insider Mark Phillips taught me, wisdom outthinks their criminal mind every time. Wisdom outthinks artificial intelligence. Wisdom is part of that soul expression, strength, the spirit saving grace that we have. So I live in that space. I don't live in fear. or hatred or any bitterness or anything like that. They got that the first 30 years of my life. They're not getting any more of that. That's their vibration. It's not mine. I'm going to live my vibration. My vibration is love. I'm going to live the love I am and keep shining the light of truth. And the censorship, the obstacles they put in my way, I'm certainly no stranger to censorship. And I will continue to speak out as this information continues to come to light, thanks to people like you all bringing this information out there. So in my situation, intelligence insider Mark Phillips, who is working the highest levels of intelligence, mind sciences, to preserve the sanctity of free thought, saw what was going on with the global infiltration of governments by this globalist agenda, how nations were losing their sovereignty. People were losing their sovereignty, innocent citizens like myself targeted for MK Ultra mind control. And he was disgusted to see that birthright information on mind-brain function, on our defense against mind control, was buried under national security ever since the mind control was brought into the U.S. So that information was buried there. Mark couldn't release that information because he was bound by laws of sedition since he worked intelligence. The level of intelligence he worked, he could be CIA, NSA, FBI, Secret Service, anything he needed to be in key positions of power and influence. And he worked on a global scale. So there were many people around the world who were aware of this globalist agenda and were very disturbed by what it was doing to dumb down humanity. It was messing with our human evolution. He found that with his research, the same thing that I found from experience, that without free thought, there's no free will soul expression, no ability to align with the divine within, and knew that this mind control agenda ultimately is a spiritual warfare and an attack on the very purpose of humanity. So he wanted to make a difference. By the time he saw little children being taken in and out of the White House and the blackmail operations that they were being used in the various islands, like the Epstein Islands and the Bohemian Groves, and these other secret places where these perpetrators meet. He saw all that happening and he was appalled. He couldn't do the best thing he could do was take action. So he lifted my daughter and me right out of the Washington, D.C. human trafficking swamp all the way back in 1988. That was before people knew there was even a globalist agenda, before they knew what mind control was about, before they realized our schools were indoctrination systems that were dumbing down the children. That was before people realized that the children were being sexualized for a mind control purpose. But wow, how fortunate for me. Being on the front lines of this certainly painted a huge target on us. Very fortunately, there were many people in intelligence, many people in law enforcement and government that were very concerned for our safety and did what they could to help protect us. My 1995 testimony for Congress, they validated every bit of that. And then it was censored under national security. When it was censored under national security, they put it in book form and distributed it to all members of Congress and the intelligence agencies and everywhere else, and it went global from there. But they were the ones that distributed it because they were not going to allow for this information to be suppressed. So despite the fact that Mark and I were dodging bullets and enduring censorship, all of which is detailed in my testimony and in access denied for reasons of national security, we were able to make it through because we followed what Mark always knew. Wisdom outthinks their criminal mind every time. Neither one of us was afraid. Besides, my daughter, Kelly, once she was lifted out of the swamp and she had a year with Mark and I, she ended up in the hospital with a physical manifestation of some of the abuse that she had endured under MK Ultra mind control, and she was medically kidnapped by the Child Protective Services. That's common practice here in the United States. It probably is with the various organizations worldwide that are supposed to be protecting the children, are only perpetuating the human trafficking. So my daughter was thrust into the corrupt system that I saw being set up. I was absolutely horrified. And it was love for her that compelled me to start speaking out. It wasn't out of hatred or bitterness or fear. It was out of love for my daughter. And love is the most powerful force in the universe. So when I needed to be able to help her, my own memories had come back by then. Mark taught me to write out my memory, that this repressed memory. Now that I was in a safe place, when Mark lifted us out in 1988, I didn't know there were good people in the world. I certainly couldn't think to trust him, but my brain knew I was safe. Just like it knew I was being abused when I was an infant and shut down neuron pathways, it knew I was safe and started opening them. And as they opened, I started getting flashes of memory intruding on my mind screen. It was like my past was intruding on my present. And Mark told me to write it out because the very act of moving a pen activates the logic critical analysis part of the brain. Typing doesn't do the same thing, just a pen on paper. So it takes emotionally incomprehensible trauma, shifts it over to logic critical analysis, where it's written out on paper and consciously seen. And all of a sudden, healing happens psychiatrically. Neuron pathways are opening psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. It's all happening at once with this one simple little brain trick that Mark taught me. He also taught me to voice no negatives without a solution, so that I didn't just talk about what happened to me. Talking about it reinforces trauma, and it also shares trauma with others. He taught me to voice no negatives without a solution. I had followed orders the first 30 years of my life. I didn't even know how to think free, but having to think in terms of a solution forced my brain to fire in new ways again. So that opened more neuron pathways. So it was a very healing thing that I suggest everyone everywhere apply to themselves, because it's a simple way to reclaim free thought, free will. If we put writing by hand in the school system, back in the school system, and take away those typewriters and keyboards, the children can't be indoctrinated anymore. They will be taught how to think again instead of being programmed what to think. So we've got a wonderful opportunity in front of us, and it's a simple key from Mark, a gift to all humanity that everyone everywhere can use. So that information that Mark taught me for healing is in PTSD, Time to Heal, and it's our birthright information. It's a reminder to us all. It's what Mark found buried under national security. He couldn't release it, but it was my experience to heal with it, so I can release it. And it's posted on my website at trance-formation.com right there, so everyone can have it and apply it. It's easy to self-apply because it reminds us all we have the victory. We have the capacity, the resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. We have capacities for healing far beyond what we have been, what we understand we have. We don't have the need for Big Pharma to give our infants 79 injections for them to survive the first year. We have been blessed with this amazing body, mind, and spirit already. And we need to start remembering that and accessing it, using it, celebrating it. I'm so fortunate to have been able to access all that and heal and share this information because I healed from within myself. I can't be triggered. The neuron pathways in my brain are open. There's no compartmentalized memory to trigger. My testimony has been the same for over 35 years. And this is information that I get to share with others now so that we can empower more people to heal. It is in this healing capacity when we reclaim all that we have the vastness of thinking to give us the wisdom to outthink criminal minds. So in spite of the attacks that never stop, the censorship that never stops, the absurd things that I have to encounter all the time, I just keep doing it because I have infinite strength of spirit with it, and I'm going to keep on because I'm going to live my life purpose now that I'm free to do so, and I cherish that freedom and celebrate it every moment of every day.
That's absolutely beautiful. I was thinking about in the 80s and 90s, there was this wave of people coming out and talking about these ritual abuse practices, and a lot of people were coming out saying that this happened in churches and there were priests involved and everything. And then they called this they kind of debunked it. I'm doing this because, and called it the satanic panic. Do you believe that this was a part of trying to silence what was coming up more, or do you think that was something else?
Well, I think, yeah, that was an attempt to suppress everything and sort of push. That was also the time that the New Age movement was going on, and there was a push towards theosophy and well, the whole push behind MK Ultra is to defeat God, so to make God inferior to man, to make man a being who controls God, and that's how you get CERN, you get all these religions, alternative religions, New Age religions that came out in the time of the 80s and 90s, and a great person to talk to about that, to have as a guest, would be Kevin Annett, who is deeply involved in exposing all of that inside the church. And if you haven't spoken to him yet, I'll give you his contact information, because he's doing a series on that, and how the real sins that were going on in the church through the program called the Ninth Circle were disguised by putting out there the idea that it's some kind of hyper reaction to something that actually was real. And some of that's in the documents, but I mean, you need to speak to someone who's an expert specifically on the church's role in this, and he is. And I do want to let your viewers know that if they read the documents and they recognize themselves, which many people are doing, people who don't have can't remember their childhood, there's a good reason for that, and you may find the reason in documents the fact that, as you said, there were many different flavors of the mind control. Cathy and I were in the full-on training to be agents, and Cathy was an agent, and every awakening, when you start to awaken and the memories start to come, if you let them come in an uncontrolled fashion, which I did, it floods you, it absolutely overwhelms you, it triggers a suicide program. And therapists that I've been talking to around the country are mentioning that they're actually having people who are starting to make a recovery attempt suicide or actually carry out suicide. And it's because the program is in there. It's their defense against you ever finding out is an overwhelming urge. And I really understand this, having gone through this myself, how overpowering it is. And that when you start to remember, don't let it all just come. Take control of it. Like Cathy says, go slow, write it out a bit at a time. Or what I did eventually when I got control over my own flooding memories was to feel like I was pulling a thread through the eye of a needle and just take every memory just as it came. And you really have to get on top of it. So drinking is ill-advised. Anything that alters your ability to control the flood that's coming at you. shouldn't be done, and therapists need to learn about this. So, because patients will seem to be just fine and making wonderful progress, and then the suicide program kicks in and they don't know about it, but they've got it in them. So I put that out there with every program I do, because we're going to lose good people unnecessarily because of another evil program these guys thought of and wrote down on cocktail napkins. Hey, don't you think we should put a suicide program in here? I mean, you just can't believe the things they wrote to each other in their little notes.
Unfortunately, the humankind has the capacity to do both good and evil, and if we put in an evil direction, there's no real limit. You can see in different studies, or what's it called, the prison experiment that they did. You can see how far people actually are willing to go to another human being. It's sad to see, but we have both good and evil in us, and we need to let the good parts shine instead of the bad parts. But I'm glad you have been touching on children a couple of times, and I think that's a key thing for the solution. We need to, because doing something for yourself, that's more difficult than doing something for someone else. And the main strength we're going to find when people actually can stand up and say, we need to do this for our future children. We can't leave a world in this stage or in the direction that we're going now. We need to rise up and stand up. And if you're talking about fear, I think the fear of what's coming should be greater than fear of doing something.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Juliette, we've talked in depth on that, the kind of programming, the death programming and the suicide programming and all that's put in place. And Mark taught me to deprogram the program first, and that's detailed in PTSD, Time to Heal. It's something that I encourage, you know, everywhere for people to do, because it will overcome that, gives the power back to the person and takes it away from the program itself. And the programming like that, in my personal experience, was from Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, the occult temple is set on the military bases. And I think that whole satanic panic, you know, throwing this in there too, was when he was found it being ritually abusing the children in the Presidio daycare scandal. And they were trying to cover that up and get people to not talk about that, because the satanic trauma was, again, a basic program in MK Ultra mind control because of the blood trauma aspects. So yeah, that was just to shame people away from looking at the reality. And ultimately we need to look at the children and do this for the children, because they're counting on us to wake up and start effectively protecting them, to not put this out and as etherical that it's demons or aliens or something else. It's people doing evil, absolute evil, people who are not like us and do not like us, but they're definitely within our realm to affect, especially when we gather our strength of spirit and live the love we are. We can start making all the difference in the world and help others to overcome any fear, any adverse programming that they have, and reclaim their right to freedom.
Have you looked anything into natural law? That's a thing that's been coming to my mind just in actually understanding our sovereign being, who we actually are, and what's our divine purpose, and the whole frame setting as we are born into this earth as free human beings, and as long as we don't do any harm, we're free to more or less do whatever we feel like, and just go back to that ground feeling that we are free individuals, and yeah, as I said, as long as we don't hurt anybody else, we are we have a broad spectrum of what we can achieve. Have you thought of that as a base?
I think that we have to look at society as a whole, and look at the status of our civilizational states. You think I think a great example of a civilizational state is the Houthis, the Yemenis in the poorest, least developed, most impoverished little end of Africa there, or the Arabian Peninsula there, and they're able to fight on the basis of a principle, and they're the ones that are actually bombing Israel in defense of Palestine. They're the only nation that stood up and actually attacked Israel in defense of Palestine. And they've been bombed by Saudi Arabia, the United States, and Israel, pounded into the dust, and they're still fighting. And the reason is they are a civilizational state. They've been there forever. They're indigenous to that area. They have a tight-knit society that they have relied on. They're not afraid of dying for their society. So I mean, there's a civilizational state, and I think we're suffering because we're trying to be all things to all people, and everybody can do what they want. But I think, and that's almost the Aleister Crowley model, which is do what thou willst, and get it for yourself. But we have to look, if children are going to survive, and our food systems, our air systems, our water systems, our moral codes are like crumbling fast. Our moral codes, who do we want to be in the future as these layers crumble? I mean, they're physically crumbling. I mean, we're going through an Earth pole change, so the Earth is going to change. And if we're going to survive as a human race, we need a civilizational state, or a series of civilizational states which are strong enough to carry us forward. So that's I think we have an opportunity to sort of out with the old that hasn't worked, and develop something new and stronger based on our as Cathy says, on the strength of our soul energy. Catherine Austin Fitts calls it the energy body, who we are here, and in connection and cooperation with each other. So I'm looking forward to working on that, on talking not just about who we've been, what we've done, the mistakes we've made, but who we want to be in the future.
I believe that is, like you say, the base of everything. So, you both have written very important books, and in these books there are a lot of solutions moving forward, and activities for not only people who have been a victim to this, but also for everyone in the in our societies. So can you both just, what am I after here? Tell us briefly how you see a solution, an end goal, a solution to all of this, because we still have a majority of people that don't believe this ever existed, and that is the biggest problem. Because I write about, I'm a child activist myself. I write a lot about children, and how children are in fact the least protected types of human beings on this earth, and people simply don't believe this. They think we have this incredible laws in place that everything around children is safe, and they can't see the agenda under it all. And children are in fact the end goal for all of these agendas. How do we get people to see this to start with, and what can the normal people do to both expose this and talk about this and make people see? What are your thoughts on this?
From my point of view, it's already happening, and it's happening big time here in the US, and I'm very busy and active on the what I think was just so brilliantly defined as natural law, you know, coming into place, where we have our moralities, we have our moral compass. We realize the system is totally corrupted. People haven't seen any justice in our world in a long time. These criminals, these perpetrators, these puppet masters at the top of this have not been held accountable for their actions. And we need to see, people need to understand that there's consequences for actions, that there's consequences for what they're doing to the children, because it's become the most lucrative business on the planet, is the sexualization of children and the trafficking of children. We got to this point because the system is corrupt. It cannot be just cleaned up and fixed. If it could, that would be happening in the United States right now. We have an administration in place that's doing all they can to clean this up, but it's not going to happen fast enough for the children. It's not going to happen fast enough for the people. So it's up to us to go within, find that moral compass, the strength of spirit, write out what's holding us back, and add that solution. Get a clear view forward to see how we can get out in our society and make the positive difference. It's happening now. Local action has national impact, has global impact, and it's happening. So safe houses now are opening up all over the United States, and they're because the children are being rescued, but they can't be thrust into the corrupt, unjust system. Their abusers aren't going to be prosecuted through a system that's been corrupted for decades now, where national security has covered up these crimes and allowed for these perpetrators to stay free. The evidence is in, but we still don't have the system for it. So it's time to reevaluate our values and reprioritize our priorities, and enforce our own natural justice by taking positive action in our communities and helping the children, give them a safe place to be, allow for them to heal, get their hands in the earth and grow nutritious food, to get their feet in the earth, to breathe in the air, feel the sun on their skin. We need to get back to nature. We need to interact with animals again. Get in touch with those beautiful aspects. Shut off our devices. Get away from the shallow snap judgments of social media, and get away from controlled media's repetitive global narrative voice, and start listening in the stillness within what we can do. And people are finding that. I'm so excited that people are finally doing that. I have waited a lifetime for people to wake up and see what in the world is going on. They are seeing it now. Now they're ready for solutions. Now they want to know, what can I do? What you can do is reclaim your own strength of spirit first, so that you can effectively help and protect the children going forward, and understand that the media is not going to tell us that this movement is happening. Get out in society, talk to each other, eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul again. Use your moral compass, see what in the world is going on, and make the difference where you can. Even if it's just going into the school system and putting writing by hand back in the school system, whatever it is, whatever you feel motivated to do, do it. And also in that process, realize the formula for mind control includes sleep, food, and water deprivation, because it starves our brains. It keeps our brains from firing properly. When mind control is to shut them down and keep our brains from firing properly, we want to open them up, get them firing beautiful, and use our brilliant minds again, so that this dark negative energy force can't meddle in our brilliant minds and lives anymore. And that's going to take getting plenty of rest, getting nutrition back in our food. It's being bioengineered and genetically altered to starve our brains and dumb us down further. Our water has been tainted with fluoride and other chemicals in order to dumb us down and keep us complacent. And the sleep issue, people are having to work 5 to 9, 9 to 5, 5 to 9, round the clock, trying to make ends meet so they can put food on the table that has no nutritional value. We have got to get that restored to our lives. So if someone's not going to be involved with the children or a therapeutic level, get out. Get your hands in the dirt. Start growing nutritional food. We're all going to be needing that again. We need to feed our brains. We need to feed our livestock so that they're healthy and happy again. We've got a long way to go to clean this mess up. And there's many different ways that we can all become active and become involved in it. And as we open our eyes to what's needed, we see that there's already huge movements going on worldwide to do exactly this. You know, look at the farmers taking a stand globally. Look at what parents are doing in the school system. Look at what really is happening. Instead of focusing on a computer for information, instead of focusing on the media for information, get out there and see what's real, embrace it, and then do what you can do to positively impact this. It's such an amazing time to be alive. This is evolutionary times we're living. It's spiritually evolutionary, mentally evolutionary, physically evolutionary when we reclaim our health and our right to our resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. So I'm deeply encouraged by the movement that's happening. I could not be busier. I can't do more than I'm doing to contribute to this as more and more people want the effective tools for restoring our freedoms.
Yeah, that's very much where I am. I couldn't be doing anything more. And then along came the release of the documents, which then exponentially increased the interest in all of this. And because of that danger of triggering people's suicide, I mean, I had to speak out about that. So yeah. And I should say, I think Cathy and I are probably exceptions to the rule. I mean, I'm 76, Cathy's a bit behind me, and we survived through this, but I don't think most people did, and or came through terribly damaged. And so a lot needs to be done. And I hope that as time goes on and the programming wears off, which it seems to be happening, and then the document release gives people permission to go into their past and realize that, no, they're not lying. It's the government that was lying. That more and more people come forward and start sharing information with the normies, because got to have the normies, but the normies have to have an experience. So they need a little negative experience before they realize that the risk, that they're at risk also, but not too much so that they get too traumatized. So it's a delicate balance, but we're working on it. There's groups all over the country working on it, and I'm thrilled that you're broadcasting this in Sweden.
Thank you so much for doing this with us. It's been a really pleasure. And I actually thought that my feeling at the end of this interview would be more of a dark spot, just realizing your background and what you've been going through. But the feeling I have now is the total opposite. If I really feel in a good place, and I see us as a society and moving forward and going through. And have you both done your trip with the normies, or us has not been as hardly affected on it? We can get it through as well. So
Did the MK Ultra program shut down like they said, or is it still going on? Didn't know. course it did.
No, of course not. It's gotten
Going
much
on.
more sophisticated, and it's divided into Cathy. I'll let Cathy speak about that. I think you know more about all the ways it's divided. There's something called GATE, GATE, which is widespread throughout schools, which is a program of mind control where parents aren't even informed that their children are being taken into classrooms, and the children never remember what was done. So, Cathy, can you expand on that?
Well, mind control masked as a virus affected the whole global population, and it was all components of MK Ultra mind control, every bit of it, right down to the mask. Masks are used in MK Ultra to depersonalize, and it creates identity disorders, and it causes identity confusion. And it did it to our children. We got a whole generation of children we're going to need to deal with on this as they experienced that identity confusion. It was redefined in the school system as gender confusion so that they could push the transgender movement, which is a pedophile mind control agenda that it takes it to the next level of depopulation because it's stopping human procreation for these children that are having the surgeries and all. So everyone's had a taste of it now. MK Ultra has definitely, every bit of it was deliberate. MK Ultra, it was multi-generationally affected. It's been creeping in through the Project Monarch aspect now for generations. And people are waking up because in spite of mind control masked as a virus being a frantic last-ditch effort by these perpetrators to gain control of the minds of the population on a global scale, they made some very serious mistakes. They told people to shelter at home. When people's routine patterns are broken, it forces the brain to fire in new ways. If you break your routine patterns, you have to think of in new ways. Like if you park your car in a different space, you got to think where'd that park that? So that opens neuron pathways in the brain. And ultimately, having people shelter at home, they thought it would put them in front of TV's repetitive narrative, and that would be all they hear, especially since their voices were muffled from 6 feet away with those masks that people felt they had no voice. And they thought they had it. They didn't. They made that fatal error because they are just, they're not bright. They're not smart. They're flat linear thinkers, and they messed up. So it woke more people up. But the fact is, those are all MK Ultra mind control components. And people are realizing that now. The more they look into it. 35 years ago, when I started speaking out, people had no point of reference for the information. They certainly have a point of reference for that information now. So they're looking into it. MK Ultra mind control is a household word now. People everywhere want to understand it more, want to know what they can do about it, how they can evolve with knowledge that's our defense against it. So yes, it's ongoing. That's what trauma after trauma after trauma being imposed on the global population is about. But when we understand that we have defense against that trauma, pick up a pen and paper, write out your fear, write out your trauma, write out whatever the next wave is going to be that they try to bombard us with, and keep protecting the free thought and living the love we are. We've got this. It's just a matter of realizing that MK Ultra has reached all new heights on a global scale, and it has done it generationally so that it's actually being passed down generation to generation. It's up to each and every one of us to break the chain, and we can all do it just by remembering who we are, why we're here, gathering the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love, and living our life's purpose. We've all been born into this time for a reason, and this is our time to shine. This is our time to live it.
That's absolutely beautiful, and I love how it just shocks me, and I'm so happy how you've been through this this trauma, and it's on a level that most people will never understand. And still, you are here inspiring everyone. How is that even possible? I feel very inspired and full of energy after talking about this very heavy topic with you, but you still just it's just so much inspiration and energy from you, and you are the perfect people to help the children and everyone that has been through this. So thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. So should we wrap it up with we're standing up behind the children and taking their responsibilities as parents and fellow human beings, and we need to dig out that warrior in us, and that's not in any way of confusing with soldiers. So a warrior has a moral compass and do what's right and stand up for the weaker ones. A soldier is someone who does something for a paycheck. So don't mix those two.
Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your knowledge and beautiful energy. I feel this was such a wonderful discussion. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for
Glad to
having
be
us.
here.
And hopefully we'll talk again another time.
Certainly.
So
Absolutely.
from all of us, I will put all the links that you have sent and everything in the description below, and you can all go and check out the work of Juliette and Cathy. Thanks everyone. Bye for now.